Grab our seats in the next few moments. We're going to get started in a few minutes, so please take your seats, and then we'll get started shortly. Thank you. We're going to start the expo now. So if you could all please get seated, we're going to start very soon. Thank you. We're really behind. we could all please find our seats. Mike, please help everyone get seated. Thank you. Okay, everyone, welcome to the second Supply Chain Expo. I'll be your MC for the day. I'm Kayvon. For those of you that don't know me, I've expoed the other, or I've MC'd the other supply chain events as well. Because while supply chain has grown a lot over this past year, the talent pool for MC has not. So you're stuck with me. So first of all, I'd like to give a really big round of applause to the entire supply chain and events team for hosting this expo. We have a really good program for you today. And I think last Expo, which was only a few months ago, we had about half the number of partners that we have in supply chain now. So I guess if supply chain were to be a movie, it would be 13 going on 30. Because now we're at 30 partners for supply chain. So a few logistical things before we get started with the startup pitches and our keynote speaker. The Wi-Fi information and the Brella app, which is the networking app you'll be using throughout the day, is on the back of your name tag. So all the information you want to find for networking and Wi-Fi will be there, as well as Lineupper, which is the program we're using that has the information on all the startups, and also where you'll be voting on which startup wins the best pitch of the day award. So please remember to make sure you vote for the startups. And one thing is that you can only vote once. So please wait until the end to vote, but don't forget to vote, and we'll be reminding you throughout. So without further ado, we have some opening remarks by our founder and CEO, Saeed Amidi. So please give him a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayvon. Thank you, the supply and logistic team. I don't know why, but they still let me talk here sometimes. But I always start with this show of hands. Who's here for the first time? I am always shocked. Why haven't you guys been here before? Really, it is an honor to welcome you. We are very proud to almost celebrate our 11th year in Plug and Play. And if I'm not mistaken, supply chain and logistic is our 11th vertical. So we now have security and energy, which came after supply chain, but I think it was number 11. But some of you, especially the newcomers, I want to sort of tell you a little bit of history, where we came from and why we are here. You know, I had an office in Palo Alto on University Avenue. The address is 165 University. Marissa Mayer, who was running Yahoo, or I should say, she didn't run Yahoo, is now in that building. But I started my company in that building, which is an import-export company for raw material, primarily polyethylene from ExxonMobil. Then I went into bottled water business, and then sort of the real estate business. And I was kind of minding my own business, doing pretty good. Like some of the businesses grew 100% a year. Lately, they only grow 20% a year. This is the water business. Albert, are you here? Albert Gutierrez from Aqua Service. He's still growing 20% a year after 20 years with 20% EBITDA. So I like you, 20, 20, 20. Woo, Albert! Then during the first technology bubble, everybody in Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Atherton would, when we had lunch, dinner, they would say, Said, what business you're in? I said, I'm in bottled water business, packaging business, and real estate. They say, no, seriously, what business you're in? I said, these are good businesses, but everybody around me was in technology business, primarily in hardware, software, and I had a next door neighbor, Pierluigi Zappacasta, that brought Logitech from Geneva to Palo Alto and then took it public. I have another good friend, Bernard Liotto, which brought Business Object from Paris to Sand Hill Road and then took it public. So roughly 25 years ago, I decided to get involved in technology as an angel investor. Quite frankly, we got lucky. Peter Thiel knocked on the door and wanted to rent space from us. And as my brother was negotiating the lease, he asked, Peter, that you don't have a profit in PayPal. But Peter said, I have a lot of money in the bank. So Peter actually paid us 2 years' rent in advance. And my brother took half the rent and invested in PayPal. Until today is one of our best investments ever. Then later on, a guy called Andy Rubin, you may know him from Android. He came and we met him in Palo Alto and we gave him his $400,000 seed round for what I call the first smartphone, which was called Danger. It was Sidekick. It would flip open, you would browse the web, you would download application. We didn't do very well because Microsoft bought Danger for $500 million. Then Andy started Android. And we were just about to seed fund him when he went dark for 6 to 8 months. Suddenly we heard he's at Google and he's launching Android inside Google. But in general, we got involved in investing in technology as an angel. And because we didn't know technology or we didn't know entrepreneurship, part of our due diligence was we would show this startup to our corporate friends. At that time, it was the AT&T CTO. Occasionally, we should show the startup to our VC friend. So when Dropbox, we met the, Drew and Arash, we showed it to Sequoia as a part of our due diligence, and we did the seed round investment in Dropbox. So we are doing exactly the same thing right now. When we find a great technology in supply chain and logistics, like Shoof or like blockchain technology to track the cargo, like from where the coffee is grown till when you buy it at Starbucks, we want to have all the tracking of that bean of coffee. We show it to Starbucks. We show it to our Union Pacific. We show it to Merck's. And we say, would this technology help your clients? And if they are willing to engage with the startup, that is when we invest in a startup. We have been able to create what I call these innovation platforms, where the biggest beneficiary is the entrepreneur, because he could meet the right people at the right time and do pilots. We feel the second biggest beneficiary is the corporates that are willing and able to engage with new technology. And then we have the community of investors, universities, and frankly, we feel everybody wins being part of this innovation platform. And our business model is we run these innovation platforms with the help of our corporate partners, but we really make big returns on our investments. I was telling Craig from JB Hans, you know, we invest a little money and then we pray a lot. So sometimes we get our prayers answered. But I thought I'd give you a little bit of that history. As of now, we invest in about 150 startups per year here. So like in supply chain and logistics, our goal is to do 10 to 20 investments per year. This year, Mike, how many have we done? 5 till now. So we still need 10 more to do. So please tell us out of the 20 plus startups pitching which one we should make an investment on. Actually, we do that based on your votes. But if I can say very humbly, this is not our platform. It is as much yours as it is ours, and help us make it the best it can be. We love your comments. We love the comments from our entrepreneurs, and let's have a great time together. Welcome.
Thank you, Saeed. So before we get into the startup pitches, we have a keynote speaker. I would like to introduce Chris Saltemeyer. He's the former EVP of Walmart Logistics. So can we please give him all a warm welcome to the stage?
Well, good morning. Okay, I got to try that again. That was pretty lame. Good morning. That's much better. That is much better. Well, I tell you, it is an honor to be here with each of you today. And Saeed, thank you for the opportunity to be here in front of this group and have a chance to speak to this group. Here we go.
I wanted to apologize. I was supposed to introduce him, but I totally forgot. My apologies.
That's all right. That is okay. Again, I just retired actually 1 year ago, and my last role is I ran logistics for Walmart. So that's my background, my experience. I had spent 30 years with Walmart prior to retiring from Walmart. Prior to that, I was in the U.S. Army for a number of years. So that kind of gives you a feel for my background. Here's what I want to do with you today. I want to take a few minutes and talk to you about the changes that I see going on in retail supply chains. Okay? So I want to talk about that, and there's about 3 points that I want to be able to make in terms of things I see coming to retail supply chains. What I also want to do is make it real informal. So if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, anything like that, you can ask them while I'm going through the presentation, or if you want to wait till the end, that's fine too. But I want to make it interactive, and I'll stop, just get my attention, wave something, don't throw anything, but wave your hand or something so I can follow you if you've got a question or anything else. So 3 things that I see personally going on in the retail supply chain that I think are going to have a dramatic impact or are already having an impact. The first one is technology. Okay, so who's ever controlling the slides, if you can roll to the next slide. There we go. The first one is technology. The things we're seeing, the things I'm seeing, the things I was seeing in Walmart while I was at Walmart, and the things that I see as I travel around and look in this space now are amazing to me. So I've got 3 areas listed there, and there's actually a 4th area. So the 3 areas I've got listed there are, number 1, truck telematics. The onboard computers, the things that make the truck run in terms of connecting with the driver and what's going on with hours of service and how that affects truck operations. That's huge. Company that you all ought to be aware of that's out there is a company called Platform Science. It's a company that's doing some new and creative things in this space right now. Lot of technology, a lot of things going on in this space that ultimately, thank you, that ultimately could look more like an iPhone and apps than what, I see a lot of heads nodding, iPhone and apps than what you see with traditional truck telematics. So be aware of that. The next thing I've got written there, 3 kind of nomenclatures. Everything that's going on around warehouse management systems, warehouse control systems, and TMS systems. So a lot of upheaval in this space. I'll talk about automation in a minute, but for years we have been studying, Walmart had been studying robotics and how to use robotics in a physical distribution center and how to make it work. Some of the things that are enabling automation to work today when it did not work 10, 15 years ago are the things that have advanced in technology. Okay? The things around warehouse control systems to interface WMSs along with the actual physical hardware or the robotic system. So there's a lot of things in that area of technology. The other area I've got listed there in a 3rd area is the whole area of augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and then the predictive analytics that comes from those technologies. So that whole area, I mean, Walmart was already using a lot of augmented reality and starting to play with it in their maintenance operations for schematics and things like that when they were actually out on the job doing the work. So there's a lot of things going on in this space right now. Artificial intelligence and predictive analytics, we saw in our whole area of replenishment. How you replenish stores, how you predict where product was going to be needed, when it was going to be needed. That's even more relevant today with the internet and what's going on with online shopping and where products need to be forward deployed. It's even more critical because everyone knows the cost is in the supply chain. That's where the cost is at. The last area here that I don't have written down, and Saeed just mentioned it a few minutes ago, is this whole area of blockchain and how blockchain and the supply chain potentially work together. And so a number of years ago, we started a test in China with pork producers and a university in China to use the blockchain to track pork production from the field, from the original source, all the way through to the customer shelf. That whole process is continuing to mature. So the use of blockchain in the supply chain is a huge opportunity. Needless to say, you can imagine how blockchain would apply when we start talking about things from a supply chain perspective in the pharmaceutical industry. And a lot of things are already starting in the pharmaceutical industry along with food, so be aware of that. So I talked about briefly that technology was enhancing automation, but the whole area of automation is just exploding right now in the physical distribution centers. And when I talk about distribution centers, I'm including fulfillment centers as well. So the whole opportunity to replace labor with mechanization, could be robotics, could be automated guided vehicles, whatever it may be, has really taken off in the last few years, and it has taken a long time. I can remember, has anyone ever heard or been to the Hanover Fair over in Germany? Okay, a few folks have. Years ago, that was the place to go to seek automation. And I don't think it's called the Hanover Fair anymore. I think it's called something else now. Still the Hanover Fair? Okay. But we used to go over there all the time seeking robotic solutions for our environments. And year after year, starting in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a lot of applications over there that might work more in manufacturing settings, but we never could get those applications to work in a physical logistics center, a distribution center. What we saw in the last 3 or 4 years has dramatically changed. Several things from an environmental standpoint changed. Things like cost of labor, things like the cost of the automation, and then the technology that drives that automation has critically advanced. Those things put together that I've got on this slide have hit a tipping point over the last 2 or 3 years where we have seen the obvious payback to do dramatic investments in automation and to automate facilities. Okay? Lots of testing, lots of starting and stopping, but really hit that point now where it's really taken off. The other area, and I used to call this the Amazon effect, and then with everyone else coming into this space, I changed it to the e-com effect. What the e-com effect is doing in the physical supply chain, logistics, is dramatic. What's going on from the standpoint of dramatically increased assortments. What used to be in a physical distribution center or a fulfillment center might be carrying 15 or 20,000 SKUs. Now those facilities are carrying 1 million SKUs, 1 million different stock keeping units. That causes the whole facility to operate and look different. Speed. Used to 2-week delivery was fine. Then 2-day delivery. Now it's same day, next day delivery. And in some cases, 30-minute, 1-hour delivery. But this whole area of speed and speed expectation has changed. And then the last thing is urban. The ability to put facilities near where people are and the need to have facilities in urban centers is forcing vertical design of facilities a lot more than it ever has in the U.S. So those are 3 things literally from a physical supply chain standpoint that I've seen from a change, but there's a couple of other things I want to touch on real quick that also are being affected. And one of those is what we see going on between this whole convergence of physical players and online players. So how many of y'all heard probably 5 or 6 years ago Jeff Bezos talk about this fact that the physical store is dead and that there's not going to be any more physical stores out there, that all the physical stores are going away? Then what did Amazon do? They bought Whole Foods, okay? So what is Walmart? Walmart was late, very late to the table when it comes to the whole online supply chain and online offering. Walmart stepped out and spent $3.5 billion and bought Jet. And since they bought Jet, they bought about 6 other online companies to continue to fill out that online offering. We're seeing it in other companies. Alibaba, what they did in terms of purchasing a hypermarket operator. So you're seeing this convergence where physical stores are getting more and more and pursuing the online shopper, and the online pure play retailers are pursuing the physical store. Well, some people ask the question, why? Why would Amazon do that? Why would Walmart do that? The answer is very simple. It really is. The most lucrative customer for you to have in retail is a customer that shops you in multiple channels. The gross profit from that customer, the lifetime value of that customer is dramatically higher than a customer that shops you in one channel. So what happens is people know that, people see that, they see that information. And what consumers want is consumers want choice. They want to be able to shop you how they choose to shop you when they want to shop. And so giving the consumers choice is what retail is pursuing, and that's why you continue to see this convergence of companies and convergence of offerings. The other area that this has led to is the whole area of last mile. And when it comes to food, Last mile is the big question. If you don't know, from a margin standpoint, the food business is dramatically different than the general merchandise business. The margin structure in food and what you can sell food for is dramatically less than other categories of goods. Because of that, your ability to deliver food economically within that margin structure such that you can create a profit has become very difficult. So, what happens with last mile, how last mile gets solved is going to be something to keep your eye on. So if you're a startup company and you're trying to play in the last mile space, it is wide open. Some of you have seen, and I've got an X through Shipt. Who recently bought Shipt? Target. Okay, so Target bought them. Did y'all see what Alibaba bought? A company called Ele, E-L-E, and they spent almost $10 billion. Food last mile. Okay, so this whole area of last mile, I've got just a few up there. Riders playing in the space. J.B. Hunt, Craig, y'all are playing in this space with last mile. I've got a company called Dolly up there, Deliv, Lyft. You've heard of a lot of these. Walmart for years, for about 2 or 3 years, has been testing Uber for last mile delivery from their stores. So this whole area of last mile is kind of the wild, wild west right now. And who is going to come out with the best offering, the best solution in last mile is wide open. Last thing I want to do, and then I'm going to open it up if there's any questions, is just tell you about, real briefly, my experience with Saeed and this team here. It's interesting. From my standpoint, when Saeed asked the question about how many of y'all have been here for the first time, I didn't raise my hand. But it's probably only about the third or the fourth time, Saeed, that I've been here. So just about a year ago, January actually of last year, I literally got a cold call from Mike. Where's Mike at? There you are, Mike. I got a cold call from Mike, and Mike said, hey, we're going to start this logistics vertical. Do you mind coming out here and talking to us and discussing this process? And I will tell you, it was interesting from the standpoint of a testimonial. When I walked into the front door, for me, it was like the bells and the whistles and the lights went off. Because in all of my years at Walmart, one of the things that I was constantly challenged with was, are you being innovative enough? Are you actually stretching the boundaries? Are you seeking out new, exciting ideas and things that you can put and we can put and incorporate in the company? And I always thought I was, when in fact I wasn't. And coming out here for the first time and walking into that lobby and meeting this team and everything and seeing what was going on, this really was what I personally was looking for in my capacity leading logistics for Walmart. And so it's just an interesting process. I congratulate you all for being here on both sides, the startups as well as the corporates. And if there's anything I can do to assist you, I would be happy to. I get a chance to serve with Saeed and help support this organization, and it's been a pleasure to work with this team. So let me pause there and see if there's any questions or anything that you might have of me, and I'll be happy to do my best to answer them until someone raises their hand and gives me the hook and says that you need to move on. Saeed.
You know, running, if I'm not mistaken, a multi-billion-dollar division at Walmart, I think you mentioned 140,000 people. How do you change such an organization? Let's say if you find the coolest product idea here, how do you bring it into that sort of large organization and implement it?
Yeah. For those that didn't hear the question, Saeed's question was, Walmart logistics, understand everything in Walmart is large. So the U.S. logistics team was about 100,000 people. Then we had about 40,000 people overseas in international markets that were running logistics in the international countries. And so in that capacity, the question was, how do you change? How do you get that organization to adopt change? And I will tell you, from my standpoint, there are probably 2 or 3 different nuggets for me that dramatically helped. Number one, you've got to communicate constantly at all levels of the organization. So for instance, we had the ability, I know a lot of trucking companies had the ability to talk to our truck drivers every day if we wanted to through the onboard computers in the trucks. So literally you could put out messages, you could push out videos, you could constantly talk directly to the Walmart truck drivers. Our fleet wasn't as big as some fleets, but our fleet was still 50,000 trailers, 7,500 tractors, and 8,000 drivers. So it was still a large fleet, but you had to push that communication out. Then what we also had to do was every week we had startup meetings, similar to what a lot of your companies do, but we had a startup meeting. But we had all of the field connect in via video conference. So our startup meeting every Monday morning consisted of about 150 people in the office, but then about 10,000 people out in the field looking into the video and connecting that way. Those were the ways that we had to push out communication, push out new ideas, and never, never take communication for granted. You have to over-communicate. I'll tell one quick story. When I didn't realize this, but how many of y'all work with truck drivers? Okay, we've got a few people working truck drivers. Truck drivers are a breed of their own. And I mean that in love. So the Walmart truck drivers in our world in 2012 had started a rumor. And the rumor in 2012 that Walmart was selling their private fleet. And so once we got word that that rumor was circulating around amongst all the truck drivers that the entire private fleet was being sold, we started digging into it and researching it and whoa, stop. Where is this information coming from? What's going on? Then one of the truck drivers, we traced it back, had said that, well, his understanding was in Sam Walton's will when he died in 1992, in his will was a statement that the truck driving fleet will be owned for 20 years and then it'll be sold. Now, there wasn't a lick of truth to that. But it just goes to show that if you don't constantly communicate with people, things like that can start permeating an organization and can ruin the culture and ruin morale. So those are the things that you've got to constantly talk to people about. Any other questions before I wrap up? Yes. Yell, I can hear you, and then I'll repeat it.
So you mentioned the idea that people should start thinking about having facilities near where customers are.
Having facilities or distribution centers near where customers are, or even in the later point that you made about the last mile delivery. And so this may be they are two different things, but if you're a company and you're thinking about, should I be owning these distribution centers, or should I partner with somebody that owns it, or should I be owning these fleets that might be doing delivery, or should I partner with somebody? I'm just curious if you can walk me through your thinking process of what are some principles that you would be using versus ownership, leasing, partnerships, things like that.
Okay. Let me take one step back real quick. When I was talking about putting facilities in metropolitan or urban markets, for example, Walmart has distribution centers in Plainview, Texas, New Albany, Mississippi, Hammond, Louisiana. How many of y'all have heard of those towns? A couple, not many. Okay, they're not sitting in Dallas, Texas, or they're not sitting in San Francisco, California. When it comes to the online shopper, you need to be in those metropolitan markets to speed delivery. That was my comment about being in urban centers. Your question was around, should you own or partner with a third party? I can tell you probably the most important aspect of that question is going to be, what is your cash flow? What is your capital situation first? Do you want that hitting you as OpEx such that you're using a third party to do that service for you? Or do you want to invest and cause that to be a competitive advantage, but you're willing to invest in and build that competency? So let me give you a feel for the Walmart trucking fleet. We had our own internal trucking fleet. J.B. Hunt was one of our great partners that's here today, and the UP is here, and BNSF. We used everybody. But the point is this. The Walmart private fleet, as big as it was, hauled 20% of our needed capacity. The other 80% of our needed capacity we purchased on the market. So in that scenario, that was a blend of an internal competency that we developed and invested in, but we did not want to build that competency to the point that it took up all of our needed capacity. We didn't want to invest that much money in it. So we invested in some of it, but not all of it. So I would say it comes down to what are those competencies that you want to invest in to give yourself a competitive advantage in the market, and what are those things that you can outsource because from your standpoint, that isn't an opportunity necessarily for competitive advantage. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, sir.
As you look at the future and you talk about some of the technology trends over here, do you see that the vertical integration is going, do you see disaggregation because technology enables coordination, reduces coordination costs? Or do you see the need for control actually leading to more vertical integration? Which way do you think it's going?
When I think about it from the perspective of the supply chain, let me come back to a little bit of a story, and I think I can answer that question. When Walmart first attempted to do food delivery, we posted on our website, we're going to, here, come online, order your groceries, and then come down, and the customer would go through their shopping basket, fill their shopping basket, got to the end of the shopping basket, and then we told them, okay, now here's delivery, and here's the fee for delivery. Everyone abandoned the cart. Nobody wanted to pay for delivery. Well, for so many of the consumers, Amazon had taught them delivery's free, delivery's free, delivery's free. Don't think about Prime membership, delivery's free. So that's what people think, delivery is free. So what we did is we twisted it, or we changed it. We started going then to having Uber do deliveries. And so as the consumer built their shopping basket and came down to the end, when it came time to delivery, when it came time to close out and get delivery, then there was an icon to click on the icon, and you could have Uber do your delivery, and then Uber charges the customer. The customer was comfortable with that. So they were happy to pay Uber to do delivery, but they're not willing to pay Walmart to do delivery. And it's just a consumer mindset that if I'm going to purchase from you, delivery needs to be free. That's an example where non-integration, from a commercial transaction standpoint, is the way the consumer is choosing to engage to compensate for the activity. So when you integrate, now, on the other hand, they want an integrated experience on the website. They want to go all the way down and click and get everything in one step. But they're happy to pay another company and not pay Walmart. So there's just some kind of dynamics. From my standpoint, I'm not sure I've got an opinion right now on whether vertical integration is going to be the way people go. We know convenience and speed will control the decision making. So if you can get convenience and speed through vertical integration or another way, that's going to be paramount, I think. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions before I wrap up? Yes, sir.
Your warehousing strategy, are you going to centralize warehousing or decentralize it, given IoT context?
Yeah, the question was, in your warehousing, are you going to centralize or decentralize? And that was based on IoT, I think was the question. Let me just kind of take a step back. I think the consumer is going to continue to want a broad assortment. And with the consumer wanting a dramatically broad assortment, then it's going to come down to there's going to have to be some function that assures where's my stuff and is my stuff getting there fast. So I think there's going to be some level of aggregation of product, but the traditional warehouse that we think of today may not look the same in the future. Okay? So I think there will continue to be an aggregation of supply to supply demand and to give a service level that the consumer expects to receive but I think it may look different than a traditional warehouse that we've seen in the past. Does that answer your question?
Possibly, but like, let's say Walmart going online, and typically you have to have different like warehouse strategy. And I think now it's like right now it's a mixture of centralizing, decentralizing happening. You know, interstate and global.
Yeah, I think actually in many ways there will continue to be more and more control of inventory from the standpoint of having the opportunity to give a high level of service and to control cost. So the combination, I actually think that there's things that enhance the whole inventory management function between predictive and analytics and artificial intelligence that enhance that to the extent that that might overcome some of the other barriers. So I actually see there being potentially more control and more predictive nature of product placement, and therefore more centralization to control cost and service. Okay. Yes, sir. What's that? Last question.
What is the Walmart expectation for reducing expenses caused by autonomous trucking, either mid-range or long-range, both?
Okay. Thinking through that. I don't think at this point, and understand I've been retired from Walmart for a year, so I don't think there's any benchmark expectations right now out there in terms of what the cost savings is going to be expected to be if you don't have a driver as part of the component. Part of it is this. I think it's going to be fairly long term before you totally pull drivers out of vehicles. As we go through the evolution of driver assist and different functions and different levels of delivery that have drivers and potentially may not have drivers, that's going to take a whole level of evolution that's going to come over time. The driver is a big component of cost in transportation, but as is fuel, as is equipment, as is everything else. I had someone the other day, and I'm not going to name their name, I know them, but they made the comment that in the future, transportation cost will be negligible because everything will be driverless vehicles. Wow, I would not go there. I would not assume transportation cost is going to be negligible. It may be less, but transportation and physical logistics is the majority of the cost. It's more than the buildings, more than the physical operations. So to say that that's going to be dramatically less, I'll have to wait and see. Okay. Well, let me go ahead and step off, but thank you for your attention today, and thank you for the opportunity I had to share with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for the very poignant talk, poignant speech on trends you're seeing in the supply chain industry from your experience at Walmart. By the way, I think that accent is a really big breath of fresh air. It reminds me of home. Like, I'm from Alabama, and I think if startups want to do really well, I think picking up on the accent is like a bit of a differentiator here. So I think before we get started into the startup speeches, we have a lot of seats here for people that are standing near the doors. So we're trying to clear that area. So if you guys could please grab a seat and the many available over here, that would be wonderful. And before we get into the startup introductions, a reminder to please keep in mind about the voting. So keep in mind that throughout the startup pitches, think about which ones you like the most, and towards the end, we'll be voting on which startup wins the best presentation award. As an introduction to Expo, since we have a lot of new faces, this is essentially our form of a demo day. So we'll have 3-minute rapid-fire pitches. We'll have a break in the middle, and then we'll continue with the pitches, and then we'll have a closing ceremony of sorts. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first startup. So for each of the startup introductions, we asked them to give us a fun fact about themselves. If they didn't give us a fun fact, I'll probably just make one up on stage, and then you guys can try to call out my BS and see if I'm lying or not. But our first startup is Eloquent Labs, and Brandon is here to present. And his fun fact is that he grew up on an actual chicken farm in Missouri. So please give him a very warm welcome. And Brandon, take it from here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brandon. I'm head of product at Eloquent Labs. We develop robust conversational artificial intelligence systems so that enterprises can scale communication, one of the topics we were just discussing earlier. Before I dive too much into us, though, I want to thank you all for the past 3 months. The meetings that we've had with many of you were really insightful and allowed us to improve our product offering in the supply chain vertical. And I just want to thank you all for taking the time to help us understand both communication with your customers and the communication that you have internally. For those of you that don't know about Eloquent, we were founded by 2 of Stanford's top natural language processing researchers. They left extremely promising careers in academia in order to provide high-quality conversational systems to enterprises today. This is the technology that I'm going to demonstrate for you here very quickly. Now, on this demonstration site, we have a website that happens to sell socks. So the questions will be fairly simple here, but keep in mind we're deployed in complex retail, logistics, and insurance environments. There's 3 main modules of our technology. We can answer frequently asked questions that a customer might ask, but the difference between us and other conversational chatbots is that we're robust to typos, linguistic variations, or rephrasals that a user might use. Because of our deep understanding of language, we don't even need a bunch of question-answer pairs in a knowledge base. We can read information from PDFs, Word documents, or internal documentation that you have in your business in order to answer questions. In fact, we're deployed in a large call center where when agents have a question, instead of reaching out to a supervisor, we read their training documentation and provide answers to questions that they have instantly from that documentation. The final thing we do is task-oriented dialogue. When a user wants to actually make a material change in your business, whether it's an internal employee trying to change a password or a customer trying to track a package, which I'm sure happens often in this industry, we can automate that process, have a conversation with the customer to gather the information we need, and perform all of this action autonomously at a high level of customer service. Now, if you've seen chatbots in the past, you might be wondering, how is Eloquent Labs able to do this when so many other very intelligent people have tried and not been able to achieve highest levels of accuracy? The short answer is that we cheat. When our artificial intelligence is confused, we've actually trained it to create a multiple choice question that asks for the exact information it needs to proceed. So our AI is actually reaching out to human beings that we employ at Eloquent when it's confused. And the human beings are trained to respond in, on average, 3 seconds so that while the agent is typing, the AI models are actually learning, updating, and responding with that human input included. Now, it's cool that this is all done in real time, but the important thing is that we now have an AI that can actually understand what it's confused about and reach out for help about that exact granular piece of data that is confusing. Because we're getting feedback on those important granular pieces of data, the accuracy rates increase dramatically. This is why over 24 companies now trust Eloquent Labs with their customer support or internal communications. And if you haven't talked to us in a while, I'd be happy to talk again. We've put a bunch of new features in our product after our conversations with you. And if you haven't talked to us ever before, we'd be happy to demonstrate the technology and learn more about how this might be applicable in your business. We have a booth in the game room, so I look forward to seeing you all later. Thanks.
Thank you, Brandon. That's a good reminder, actually. So all of the startups that are presenting here today will have booths in the game room. So if there's one in particular you want to talk to, feel free to go to the game room, and they'll have their own booth there. So the next startup is Trade Lanes. And the fun fact, I guess, from them is that his name, the presenter's name is Vijay, but he's actually not Indian. So he's the proclaimed only person with an Indian name that's not Indian. So I'm pleased to present Vijay from Trade Lanes.
Good morning. My name is Vijay Harrell, CEO of Trade Lanes. Trade Lanes eliminates the manual paperwork needed to ship ocean containers. This manual paperwork is the backbone of global trade, but costs exporters over $300 billion a year. These high costs are driven by high error rates in generating trade documents. That error rate is 70%. Trade Lanes document rooms collect all supply chain data into a single source of truth, eliminating document error rates and lowering costs by 30 to 80%. We've amassed a world-class team with over 100 years of experience in tech, supply chain, and logistics, This team has already amassed some important wins. We replaced a top competitor in our first customer acquisition, a $12 billion company. And we've won every RFP process to date. Additionally, TradeLanes is now one of 4 companies in the world that can issue an electronic bill of lading. That's just a little taste of our secret sauce. And today's world of global trade looks like this: stacks and stacks of paper and folders sitting on desks, hidden in email, with little to no transparency, with high costs due to data error rates. In tomorrow's collaborative trade economy, powered by TradeLanes, we've converted a complex, manual, paper-driven process into a simple series of mouse clicks, creating a single source of truth that's powered by our global trade graph. And this is the underpinning of the collaborative trade e-commerce experience that we provide. Having launched in November 2017, we've already generated $275,000 in the last 6 months and built a pipeline of 31 of the top 100 US exporters, representing over $1 million in annual recurring revenue. Our ideal customer profile has 7 distinct segments. At $60 a shipment, our annual average contract value is $40,000. We're in the middle of closing a seed round to achieve the following milestones. Even though our round is oversubscribed, if you're interested and can add value, please find me during the break in the game room. These milestones lay the foundation for global growth at scale. And in closing, I'll leave you with this. If we succeed, we enable economic stability through frictionless global trade. That means more money in the pockets of local producers so they can hire more folks, grow their business, and increase the standard of living in their local communities. That's the TradeLanes mission. Thank you for your time.
That was exactly 3 minutes on the dot, so very impressive there. So she hasn't told me this yet, and I don't think she even knew I was gonna say this joke, but Onik is probably a big fan of this next startup because they're named after a Norse god, and Maersk is a Danish company, so there's some kind of fit right there. So our next startup is Odin, which is the Norse god of, I think, thunder, and Mark will be presenting there, and he's a very avid pastry chef, so please give him a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for coming out. I'm Mark. I run a company called Odin, and after selling my previous company in the maritime intelligence space, I just jumped right back into it with the company I want to share with you today. So Odin helps large manufacturers optimize their in-transit inventory by tracking and analyzing the movement of shipments around the world. And it's kind of a big problem. As a large manufacturer, you've got all this inventory flown around everywhere. You've got billions of dollars of stuff just in the middle of nowhere. And for every day that you can get that inventory off your books faster, it's worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. So people, large guys like P&G, Unilever, they throw teams of folks. I think Levi's had at one point 40 folks in the United States literally just tracking where their shipments were. They're trying to figure out, do I need to call up a customs broker, warehouse foreman, ship captain, just to kind of figure out first where my inventory is, and then to figure out how to move stuff around the world generally requires data that just doesn't exist. You don't know how ports are performing, you don't know how carriers are performing, you don't have any of this stuff. And that's really where we come in. We provide a holistic view in real time of everything that moves inside your supply chain. And the way that we do that is through basically stitching together as many data sets as we can get our hands on. We look at public data like vessel movement, airplane movement. We look at private data like bills of lading. We even have our own proprietary data that comes from these tiny little devices that we affix onto shipments. This is the lowest cost pallet tracking solution on the market by like orders of magnitude. It costs $5 all in, gets you temperature, humidity, acceleration, vibration, shock, pretty much anything that you would care about on an individual basis. Stitching all that together, ooh, that's great. Stitching all that together, you get a picture of your individual shipments. It's traditional asset tracking, dot on a map. Here you'll note trucks from Germany to Antwerp, boat from Antwerp to Saudi Arabia in a truck the rest of the way, and we're continuously monitoring to see, temperature and making sure that everything's going as it should. But where things get real interesting is when we start to map out your supply networks. And here, you'll note that we're mapping out a supply chain from the point of manufacture all the way to the final point of retail on a shipment level. This is particularly interesting for guys like P&G, who are then able to look inside of Walmart's supply chain, so that as promotional periods are starting to happen, you can make sure that you're building the right amount of inventory at the right time, making sure that your DCs are operating as expected, your mixing centers aren't holding inventory. It's just reduce a ridiculous amount of inventory in the network. And making all this happen, we've got an insanely talented team. My co-founder, John's got a PhD in machine learning and has been a partner at a hedge fund for the past 10 years. Constantine is one of the world's leading experts in embedded computing. Just insanely talented folks. I should also mention that we are currently live and active with a number of Fortune 500 companies actively monitoring their supply networks. And if you want to learn more about increasing your asset velocity, come find us in that game room. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mark. So our next presenter is a self-professed tiger mom. I'm pleased to present Amy from Cogniac.
I'm Amy Wang, co-founder of Cogniac. We're a 2.5-year-old startup based in Silicon Valley, making enterprise-class software system for automating visual inspection tasks to the human-level accuracy. If you still have humans doing manual inspections that are tedious, error-prone, or even dangerous, or you have machine vision systems that are rejecting too many good parts, talk to us. Our system enables your quality inspector to build this sophisticated visual inspection workflows powered by the latest deep learning technologies without them have to have technical knowledge of a convolutional neural network. And you train our system just you like train your human operators by providing examples. And with our system, you basically can clone your best dedicated quality inspectors at will. We focus on 3 sectors: the manufacturing defect detection, industrial inspection, safety, and security. Our system has a very sophisticated backend that uses AI to create AI to enable this incredibly easy to use front end that users see. Most other deep learning system requires user to acquire millions of images, label all of them, and PhD to train models, and operations team to deploy models. This waterfall model takes multi-months to make a usable applications. The Cogniac system took an agile approach. With purpose-built interface, your user only need to label hundreds to thousands of images and to make production-level application in a week or sometimes even a day. We continuously train models for your application. It gets better over time, just like humans. And we keep a detailed record of all your data and as a system of record for all your visual data applications. As we enter the computer vision age, this is going to be the most powerful assets your company owns. We have a full API for easy integration. We offer flexible deployment options from pure cloud to pure on-prem and combination thereof. Our system has been in production for over a year. We have real customers, and our team has a track record of building easy-to-use product from complex technologies. Our vision is that Cogniac can do with the computer vision technology like what Ford did for the auto industry. We're going to turn a craftsmanship-based product to mass products, so all of you can benefit from the advanced deep learning technologies. There's so many things you can do with our system. If you have a visual inspection task, remember my colorful dress. Come to see me for a live demo of our system.
Thank you, Amy. So our next startup that's presenting is called Dre Alliance. And I'm not super familiar with the startups in the supply chain batch. So when I saw this, Contrary to my belief, it's not like a fan base for the Golden State Warriors player Draymond Green, which is what I first thought of. So please present Steve from J Alliance. And please welcome him. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Steve from J Alliance. I'm the co-founder of the company. I would say we are one of the most unsexy startup there is here. We're in the niche market of drayage. It's really fun. It's the transfer of goods from a ship to a warehouse. And we're trying to make it really easy. The current customer base that we have, the import and export shippers, are very used to being connected, but not here. So they're used to using softwares like Slack, WeChat to be connected throughout the supply chain. But it's not happening yet in drayage before we came. They're battling surging rates, emails and phone calls, and blaming of each other when something goes wrong. Why is that happening? It's very difficult to find drayage trucking providers today, wasting a lot of trucking capacity, especially having these vessels all come at different times. And the limited channel communication and information sharing with the stakeholders add up to that problem. So how we see this problem is really the way import and export shippers and container trucking providers are working is now suited for a world that no longer exists. So what do we want to do? We want to make it really easy. We want to make it the easiest way you can to deliver a container. How we do that? Imagine it takes one click to secure a drayage quote. On the left, the example of an email chain to ask for a quote. If you can see the dates, it started with May 12th all the way to June 10th. On the right is what we have. You get it in about 2 seconds, enabled by technology. Imagine containers being matched to algorithms, to carriers by algorithms, eliminating the wasted miles. On the left is what they use now, is the online yellow page. So some key differentiators with us is we're optimizing the capacity of fleets and drivers to pick up containers and deliver containers to the warehouses. And using equipment optimization by matching import and export containers, and closing the loop on this is by directly connecting the drivers and freight instead of being just the broker. The founding team consists of industry experts, top engineers from IBM and Expedia. The total market is about 6.9 billion in the US, and we're really looking to expand globally. Some of our current customers include Mattel, YTO Express. For these two, we're actually handling more than 50% of their US freight, and we have about 50 other corporate shippers. So what's happening today? We're launched in LA and expanding to all West Coast ports. We actually had a month of 80% GMV growth last month and about 50% in net sales. And we just launched our seed round with half committed in about 2 days. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. So our next star presenter is from Bordeaux, which he claims is the best wine region in the world, but everyone that's been to Napa and Sonoma knows it's the second best wine region in the world. I see some of the European foreigners shaking their heads, but it's okay. Please present Antoine from Dalwex. And please introduce all startups with a big round of applause.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm not even going to answer that. Thank you very much. So my name is Antoine. I'm U.S. Operation Manager for Dalwex. And I want to start by saying that today a lot of companies are going to talk to you about data, either using data or collecting data through IoT devices, for example. And that is because the data economy is going to be a major contributor to growth in the coming years. And if you take data monetization, the exchange, the buying and the selling of data across all business sectors and across all companies, it is estimated at $500 billion worldwide market. But today we have a problem. The most data is still completely locked inside companies. And I'm talking about all type of data, so industrial data, but also personal data, raw data, aggregated data, and so on. And because we need 5 things to unlock that data economy, to unlock that potential. First of all, we need trust and transparency, which are required for any business transaction, any business deals. But we also need to have control. Companies want to remain in control of their data, to know where it's going, who uses it. We also need encryption and privacy for security reasons, and we need compliance, both nationally but also internationally, to be able to exchange data on an international cross-border level. And that is what we do at DAOX. DAOX is a global data marketplace where companies can share, buy, sell data. Any kind of data, any industry, anywhere in the world. I just want to make something clear. We do not buy and we do not sell data. We're a trusted third party that streamlines and secure the data transaction. On DAOX, companies keep control, decide who they sell their data to, which price, under which terms and conditions. As a marketplace, we will match data supply and data demand. We will enable companies to exchange data through file, but also API, enabling real-time data transactions. We're a secure marketplace, and our contracts are compliant with both local and international rules and regulation. So if you take a use case of an OEM, a car supplier, which has geolocated data, sensor data, he will be able to monetize that data to car services, but also hedge funds or retailers. So companies inside and outside of its competitive landscape. We commercialized the marketplace over a year ago now. We have actually 3,500 companies on the marketplace, more than 20 business sectors represented, mostly in Europe and in North America, even though we are planning to expand to Asia in the coming month. And 10% of our companies are large corporation, billion-dollar-plus corporation. Now let's take all of the features I just talked about and let's take it to a more private setting. This is what we call the private data exchange. And this enables a corporation to actually exchange data inside the corporation or inside its own ecosystem with its close partners, with its subsidiaries, suppliers, clients, in a more private settings and in total control of even who gets on their private data marketplace. And this is a possibility that we offer. So during our life, we actually have built several partnerships with consultancy firm, PwC is an example, or technology companies. Nubo, which is a Canadian startup, is another example. We are recognized by institution, and we've been mentioned by global research firm. Thank you very much. If you have any question, just send me an email or come talk to me afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Antoine. So the next startup got the inspiration for the name of their company through the logistics of different bees and the hives that they go in and out of. Please present Charles from Hive Tracker.
Hi, so I'm Charles. I'm CEO and co-founder of Hive Tracker, and we're bringing light to dark spots of the supply chain. I'm not going to tell you how complex the supply chain is. You've already heard that, but I will tell you that two things. To make it truly efficient, you need continuous visibility, and you need item-level granularity. And that's how you're going to get the proper quality control of your product. Why is that so important? Well, in the farm industry, you have a legal obligation to track and monitor your global transportation warehousing conditions as of last year and by latest 2023. By authentication of product, you can help reduce over $200 billion in counterfeit farmer products per year. That's killing over 1 million patients per year. You can help to reduce or stop over $35 billion in lost and stolen goods annually. And by getting that item-level transparency, you'll improve your margins and drive your sales. So how do we do that? We have a proprietary global supply chain visibility platform that goes from production through distribution all the way to the end consumer. So it's all in real time, no point-to-point, no batch data, and on top of it, we're digitizing documentations. So we're going from item to the box, to the pallet, to the warehouse or the container, and onto our Swarm platform, and the information is into your head office. Our beacons contain everything you need, and they're tiny. They have Bluetooth Low Energy, RFID, and data matrix for interoperability, a data logger that can hold up to 10,000 measurements. As standard, we have temperature, humidity, and light as sensors in it, but we can include any other sensors required depending on the item we're tracking. a battery up to 10 years, and best of all, the cost and the size makes them disposable, and there's no reverse logistics required. On top of that, we offer two types of reports. One is just raw data, unanalyzed, and the other is prescriptive analytics. So we're telling you the moment something happens, we're warning all actors involved, what happened, where it happened, what to do about it, the actions and corrective measures needed to take to move continuously the flow of the rest of your supply chain. And best of all, we're giving you global visibility of your physical and virtual stocks. So it's efficient, it's predictive, and it's waste reducing. And best of all, we're not only doing this for pharma, but we're doing this for everything else. Any item. For us, it doesn't matter. Perishables, chemicals, luxury, wine, medical equipment, industrial equipment, robotics, in the warehouse, people in the warehouse and yard tracking, and e-commerce. Our business model is as a service, so pay for what you need, lowest cost solution, so very quick return on investment, and as I said before, there are no reverse logistics. Our team has vast experience in global supply chain and logistics, electronics and telecommunication systems, digitalization, retail, and finance. And where we are today is we're looking for corporate clients and pilot projects and partnerships to distribute where we can work with to sell our solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. All the startups have been really good on timing today, which is a miracle here at Plug and Play, if you've been to our events before. So the next fun fact is actually pretty interesting. Our next presenter was shot out exploiting minerals from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So if you're interested in hearing more about that story, I'd find him in the game room sometime during the break. Please introduce Dan from Bex 360.
Morning, or almost afternoon. Let's lighten this up a little bit. Who was naked last night? Who wanted to be naked last night? Who got up this morning and stared in a mirror for 5 minutes at yourself naked? That's what's happening in your supply chains right now. People are looking at your supply chains, and they know more about your supply chains than you do. Bex 360 really enables something we call conscious consumerism, which is connecting the first mile to the actual consumer. Consumers want to know where their goods come from, and the trend, instead of that last mile inconvenience, will be to have actual data about where their products came from. We're targeting 4 of the largest markets in the world, inefficient markets. We started with coffee. We're looking at palm oil, seafood, and cotton. For example, we just bought some AI from a company that can do underwater facial recognition on fish, so we can prove the provenance of where seafood comes from. What we're looking at is these macro trends, which is why we started this company. We're a team of about 13 people based in Denver, Colorado, but we see the demand for things like coffee, seafood obviously growing. We also see what we call farm to table on steroids. 80% of people want to know where their goods come from. The country of origins are changing rapidly. They now have the ability to do digital payments. They have the ability to have electricity, they have the ability to export, and they have the ability to contact their customers directly. So the Uber effect, the Amazon effect, is going to the first mile. And this has been enabled by technology. I spent 7 years in the DRC, and what we saw was the ability to put technology into that first mile of production. And these technologies, blockchain, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but also the combination of blockchain and cryptocurrency I think is key. The third one is AI and machine learning. We use AI and machine learning to do the processes by which consumers can see where their goods came from. And lastly is this idea of markers, which I think is going to change the supply chain completely. We have the ability to put food-grade markers, DNA sequencing, and unique identifiers in products at the point of origin to know the exact provenance, date, time of where those products came from, eliminating the need for transparency and tracking after that point of collection. So to give you an idea, in the coffee business, we label every cherry as they come through our system. We do 10,000 objects per minute through our machine, and we identify the quality of every cherry of coffee, which contains green coffee, as it comes through the supply chain. Now, blockchain, I'm running out of time here, has been a lot of hype, but we use blockchain and we have patents on the ability to crypto blockchain. Let me go to it right here. Crypto blockchain as it comes into the system. So we have the ability to create an actual asset on your balance sheet as the commodity comes through the supply chain, enabling us to lend directly to the consumers, to the producers of the goods. Thank you.
Awesome. So this is our last startup pitch before we go into our halftime break, so to speak. So the next startup founder was born in Fort Knox. And for those of you familiar with Fort Knox, it's safe to say I think this startup might be made out of gold, which means that I don't know if they're going to be needing to have any fundraising anytime soon. So next presenter is Joel from I Am Robotics. Wrong startup. I Am Robotics. Is there a deck? Yeah, perfect. All right, please welcome Joel.
Thank you. We are raising money, so that's not true. So I am Joel Reed, and thank you for your interest in I Am Robotics. So predicting the future is always uncertain, but in the area of logistics, we know that some certain things are true. The ground is dramatically shifting today. And as it relates to automation, we know that companies are going to have to automate to be able to survive in this industry. We have growing demand. In the US alone, the percentage of people who are shopping online has tripled in the last 10 years. It's now 15% of all retail purchases. And then e-commerce worldwide is a $5 trillion a year industry. But at the same time, we're seeing the diminishing of labor. The World Bank last year sounded the alarm on a global worker shortage. We have tens of millions of people that are retiring every year, and millennials simply just don't want to do this work any longer. But as consumers, our expectations are changing rapidly. As it was mentioned before this morning by Chris, we want a lot of options in what we're ordering. We want to personalize our products, and we want our stuff delivered to us tomorrow, or even today, or 30 minutes from now. And this is creating the need for new innovations. It was mentioned about moving towards urban centers. These are micro-fulfillment centers. They need to be smaller, they need to be closer, and they're going to have different configurations than typical distribution centers. So the future is possible. With I Am Robotics, we offer an affordable, flexible, and fully autonomous material handling robot. We're utilizing novel 3D computer vision and mobile processing techniques to autonomously navigate throughout a warehouse and identify specific objects. And then we leverage our expertise in robotics manipulation to be able to manipulate the world around us. But most importantly, we do this at human level performance, or we exceed human level. And this leads to cheaper and more flexible logistics fulfillment. So in the industry today, customers have really two extremes when it comes to automation. On one end, you have highly expensive, very inflexible automated storage and retrieval systems, or ASRS systems. And then there's on the other end, there's a new class of robots called automated mobile robots, or CARTs. And they offer slight productivity advantages to existing labor. But what happens when your labor is diminishing or disappearing? The root problem remains. So introducing the Swift Picking Module. It's a flexible ASRS that's intended for e-commerce fulfillment. The Swift Picking Module is a zone set up in a traditional warehouse environment where robots are doing all the work, picking 24/7. They're either doing individual piece picking or each picking for order fulfillment, or we have the ability to handle bins or totes of items to create a goods-to-person system. In any event, these items are brought over to a station for final order fulfillment. This is our robot at RDC. We've been operational for over a year, and we've handled tens of thousands of items. And we've proven the ability to not only pull bins from warehouse store shelves, but we can also put them back. And there's no company in the industry that's been able to demonstrate that on a commercial scale today. So we have a 1 to 2 year payback. One robot can replace up to 4 FTE, which can be redistributed for more useful work, and millions of dollars are saved. So we're fast, we're flexible, We're portable, we're proven, we've been operating for over a year, and we have more projects coming, and we're affordable, so we're making automation available to a broader segment of the market. Some seem to think that what we're doing is bigger than Kiva. So thank you. I am Joel Reed, we are I Am Robotics, and we're your competitive advantage.
Thank you, Joel. And yes, the Fort Knox joke was not real. We actually invested in them, so they're a portfolio company, and they are raising. So we have now reached the middle portion of our expo here. So we've gone through half of our startups, and half of the startups will be after the break. We'll be reconvening back here at 10:45. So in the meantime, feel free to go outside, get some food, go to the game room to meet some startups, or do some Brella meetings. And the Brella area is right next to the main staircase. So we'll meet you guys all back here at 10:45. Thank you. and start the next round of startups to stay on schedule. So if we could all please start coming back to the room and sitting down, we would like to start shortly. Thank you.
Today was a great trip through the art of the possible, and where emerging technology is going, where people see real application and value for the things that we can do with data in a relatively efficient and deployable fashion.
Selection Day today was really great. Just like Plug and Play is really great because you're filtering the startups and you're filtering the corporations and you're introducing us to each other in a context of trust where we can really discuss each other's problems and figure out whether we can work together.
We're just really excited to get our finger on the pulse of the industry. This is something you don't hear a lot about unless you have experience in supply chain. It's a lot of B2B stuff. You don't hear about it as a consumer in the details of the problems they're going through. So we're really appreciative of the opportunity to get to understand these companies a little bit better.
The Selection Day is a really great insight for us in Lufthansa Cargo because we can see the technological developments in supply chain and logistics. This supply chain and logistics accelerator is famous for what you have already set up, and we are glad that we joined in this program.
We would love to accelerate the introduction and commercialization of our product. We realize how important it is to develop these relationships, and this is a single place that we can come and meet prospective customers and partners in the industry. Additionally, we're looking to learn from other companies that participate in the program and from Plug and Play itself.
What we liked about the program was that it's been run really tight and very well organized. We like the depth and the breadth of enterprises that have been participating.
Meaning people that have the same interests as we have, the same challenges, also the other corporate partners that we met here. It's really great to exchange with them and see what challenges and what tasks they have, and we can just benefit and learn from each other.
It's not that simple to get in contact with the right decision makers within the companies. Here we have the feeling that we actually connect with the right people in order to move forward on pilots and then the next implementation phase.
So it's really impressive the level of startups that are presenting. We see that they are all very innovative, so Plug and Play is everywhere and we're really excited to be here.
Aujourd'hui, c'était vraiment très excitant parce qu'on voit beaucoup de choses ou on entend beaucoup de choses dans la presse, mais là on peut les toucher, on peut les sentir, on peut vraiment voir ce qu'ils sont réellement et discuter avec les gens qui font les choses, et ça c'est vraiment très intéressant.
We're interested to see, where are there some opportunities for actionable pilots that come out of those kind of joint interactions between the other partners in the program and the technology companies that are actually in the accelerator program.
Today was a great trip through the art of the possible, and where emerging technology is going, where people see real application and value for the things that we can.
Hello, everyone. So I hope you guys all had a really good break, and you guys are ready for some startup pitches. We're trying to get everyone seated right now out of respect for the startups in our schedule today. So if we can do that as soon as possible, it would be greatly appreciated. We will be starting with our first pitch in about a minute or so please grab your seats. Okay, so we are going to commence with our next startup pitch. If you ever walk around our office, they had a lunch and learn once, and they handed out a bunch of jackets. So even I have one. The next company is Robbie.io, and you'll see a lot of us sporting their jackets around the office. And they have a special presentation today. I think it was similar to the Selection Day presentation, if you were here for that. But we have a special guest for their presentation as well. So please help me welcome Sawmill from Robbie.io.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Somil Naravati with Robbie.io. So first of all, before we start, look underneath. There's free jackets. No, I'm just joking. We're a startup. So let's start with that. So what we do is we do basic automation in last mile cargo. And let me talk to you a little bit about that. So as in robotics talked about it, that e-commerce is growing really big. It's about $300 billion and it's growing 23% year on year. That's huge. And so one of the things that we decided to do is we try to understand what the challenges of our customers are. And when they start looking at this growth of e-commerce, they start facing a bunch of challenges from an efficiency perspective and also from new business perspective. And so we start looking at the first few things we saw is that there's a lot of tightness of labor demand. And there's not enough people for the business that's coming in. Or they're not reliable, or they're not able to do 24/7 operations. On a new business perspective, they were asking us that can we do new initiatives where we can increase the top line? And we start thinking about that and what we can do with it. And before we get into how we can find some solutions around that, let me show you what automation in robotics means. And this is one of our customers in LA. So that's Robbie 1 with our customer Postmates, and that was in LA. And here's how some of our customers are interacting with Robbie 1. And they're picking up stuff, complete branded with our customer brand, and here's how it goes. And then as we start thinking about 1, we learned a lot of things, and we started thinking about what we can do better. And now we have Robbie 2, bigger, better, faster. So a little bit of video about that too, since everybody cannot see it. The difference is that Robbie 2 basically can do a lot of things Robbie 1 cannot do. It's fully autonomous on sidewalks. You can climb curbs. It has more storage. I'll get more technical details about what Robbie 2 can do. So what are the solutions about the autonomous driving, what we can do? So here's some of the solutions we're working on. And most of our customers are coming in and saying, well, can we do 2-hour delivery? Can we offer that to our customers? Can we do on demand because we have a lot of first failed attempts, which is costing our customers anything between $5 to $6 per failed attempt? Or can we do high-value items? Some of the things are, whether it's in laptops, iPhones, so on and so forth, you can start delivering that on the same day in a secure way. Or from an efficiency perspective, our customers are coming in saying, well, can you do something where we can do store-to-store restocking? Right now, the restocking is done on a weekly basis. It's done on a periodic basis. Now, with Robbie, you can move from store to store. So a customer is inside a store, and there's no stock. Well, guess what? You can bring it from another store using Robbie without having any human interaction. We can also do some things like in-field and parts replenishment. So a Comcast technician is at the home, and basically there's no running out of parts. And this happens to me a lot. Like they come in, and it's like, look, we don't have parts. I'll come back tomorrow, or day after tomorrow. You got to have another appointment. You can change all of that stuff with Robbie. So that's a little bit about that. Now let's get into technical specs. So this is a fully autonomous self-driving robot that works on sidewalks, every hill, every curb. And you saw that Robbie 2 is able to do that. It also has day and night capability as well. So we have lights in the front and the back to warn the pedestrians what's going on. And then from a performance perspective, it's the best one that's out there. We are able to do between 3 to 6 miles an hour, depending on the pedestrian traffic and so on and so forth. We're also able to do up to 10 miles an hour when there's nobody around. The cargo size is anywhere between 35 to 60 pounds. So it's quite a lot of stuff we can put in. The volume is about 70 liters. And from a distance perspective, we're the best one that's out there. We are able to do 20 plus miles on Robbie 2 in a single charge. And it's also hot swappable. So within a 3-minute time period, we're able to swap battery from this to a new one, and it's able to do another 20 miles. It will take about 7 to 8 minutes to basically fuel up your truck for it to go back in the field again. We have a bunch of other features that are standard. Cool pack refrigeration if you need to keep things cool, hot. We also have live tracking and monitoring. And then from a completion fleet perspective, what we do is we provide a fleet solution, and that's basically what we do. And so we provide a whole bunch of stuff along with it to make a complete fleet solution to our partners. And last couple of things, we have a few customers that we're already on the field right now across California. And our team is basically very, very big into robotics. So my CEO and CTO, co-founders, both are MIT PhDs. Our team is coming from Apple, Google, SRI International, and Boston Dynamics. So that's Robbie Technologies. We're out there. We have a booth. Come and see the Robbie live in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Salma. So for those of you that have been to, as we watch Robbie leave, I'll wait. Awesome. So for those of you that have been to previous selection days or expos for supply chain, you'll know this about our next presenter is that he's a big sneakerhead. So straight out of Atlanta, we have Amari from Sudo.
All right, good morning, everyone. Not many sneakerheads, right? It's okay. It's all right. I got plenty for all of us. Name's Amari Ruff. I'm founder and CEO of Sudo. That's speed and tempo in Chinese for those that were wondering, and correct pronunciation is Sudo. So just thought that was pretty cool, and we felt that spoke a lot to the efficiencies that we provide our customers from a technology standpoint. So we're in the logistics industry. Everything we see, we touch, we eat was most likely moved by a truck, right? On one hand, you've got your truckers, which 1.2 million trucking companies in the United States today, but 90% of them have 6 or less trucks. Then you've got one shipper could spend over $1 billion in shipping per year in the industry. Very, very large industry, but 1 out of every 4 transactions go through a freight broker, and that's the problem. Freight brokers sit in the middle. Those large shippers would love access to those small and medium-sized trucking companies, but they don't have the bandwidth to work with them. Small and medium-sized trucking companies want access to quality freight from those large shippers, but they don't have access to capital, scalability, all that good stuff, so they have to go through freight brokers. Freight brokers are glorified call centers, limited transparency throughout the shipping process, and their sole goal is to maximize margins off of every transaction. This is what they look like. They receive freight information. Those individuals are jumping on the phones, making phone calls, sending faxes to complete a transaction. And a little fun fact is that the top 20 freight brokerage companies in the United States today account for less than 18% of the total market. Extremely fragmented, right? So the way we solve this market mismatch is through the Sudo marketplace. In our system today, we've got over 300,000 trucking companies that we know every single thing about. We know truck type, trailer type, lanes they like to run, commodities they like to move, if they're minority, women, veteran-owned, all the way down to the way they like to be communicated. with, which is most important. So here, when Sudo receives freight information, we take all those preferences into account, and that's going to give us a top 10, top 50, in this case, top 748 trucking companies that best fit to move that load at that particular time. But it doesn't stop there. We take pride in communicating with the carriers in our network the way they like to be communicated with. It's not realistic to expect these guys to download a mobile app for sole communication. So we develop multi-ways to communicate with them. So this could be via our carrier portal, mobile app for those that are a little more technology savvy, but we developed chat bots. At the push of a button, we can call 5 truckers or we can call 500 truckers. Once interest is sought in that load, it's transferred back over to a human to complete the transaction from a pricing standpoint and dispatch of that truck. By the end of the year, that chatbot will be able to complete that entire transaction from booking that truck to pricing and dispatching. What I'm talking about today isn't what we think or what we hope to do, it's what we're doing today. We're a real company with real revenue, with real customers that we're providing solutions for today. Today now, for those investors out there that may be interested, we're doing over $600,000 a month in GMV today, and we're steadily growing. We're currently looking and gearing up for a Series A raise, so for those that are open to have the conversation, feel free to connect with me. And with us, with Sudo, moving freight from A to B is just a foundation. As we continue to build our marketplace and build this ecosystem, the opportunities are endless. Industry's going through a transformation today. Just like these other industries went through transformation, Sudo's in the middle of the logistics industry today. And this is the team that's getting it done. Thanks a bunch for your time. If you're interested in learning more, we've got a booth back there. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks, Amari. So our next startup gave us the fun fact that even though he's in the supply chain and logistics business and automating it, he's German and he's never on time. But from my experience in Germany and dealing with Germans, Germans are never on time. So pretty standard there. But pleased to present Mark from Evertracker.
Hi, everyone. It's true, I'm never on time. I managed to be on time today. I'm Mark Schmidt, co-founder and CEO of Evertracker. We redefine supply chains and logistics. We mainly work for manufacturers because they all have one common problem. They have almost no control over their supply chain and logistics because they outsourced most of their processes to logistics service providers like Audi, Airbus, and other companies. So we give them full control to manage their risks through predictions. We help them to minimize risk through understanding of processes, and we eliminate risk through automation. So we offer 2 products to explain you a little bit what we do. So we have one product, it's called Lead. It's mainly focusing on supply chains, working with scanning information from barcodes and RFID. So if you are producing a plane or any other product, what we do is we are learning the different steps that a product or a part takes through the entire supply chain, and we can predict arrival times of parts. But as we learn how certain things are working, so we know exactly from one step to the other, it takes 1 hour. So the product needs to be here at 12 a.m. To be delivered at 1 p.m. to the production site. So this step takes 2 hours, so my software is smarter than me because this app would understand that it makes absolutely no sense that it should start at 12 a.m., so it should start at 10 a.m., and it takes 2 hours from here to here, so it should start at 8 a.m. But we also understand, or we help companies to understand the problematic of certain steps, and they use Bring to actually understand the detail and automate the detail of processes like transportation or anything that happens in the warehouse. How does it work? We worked on a machine learning AI platform. You can integrate any kind of data that either already exists or you integrate sensors from partners like we're working with Bosch and other like Schuh Technologies, a startup here that you are familiar with from Plug and Play. So how does the client get the data? Mainly through APIs that they can integrate the data directly into their system, or they can use our front end, which is mainly used for pilots. The industry loves us. These are customers. These are pilot clients that we are already working with, and this is what's currently happening since we are in Plug and Play. We are supported by the best. We are in the Inception program of NVIDIA. We're in the plug-and-play supply chain program, Startup Autobahn, InsurTech Europe, and recently we got selected into the incubator of Ericsson. Now to the team, that's me. In order to recognize me, I don't have time anymore to shave or take new pictures. You need to recognize me if I'm outside. Thank you very much. If you want to get control of your supply chain, let's talk. We are outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. So our next startup founder was actually there when Steve Jobs pulled out his first version of the iPod in front of all the Apple employees. This is also another startup that has been in other verticals as well, including FinTech and InsurTech. I'm pleased to introduce Atakan from Big ML.
Thank you. Great, thanks everyone. Atakan here, great to be here today. With Big ML, we're all about machine learning. So machine learning has disruptive potential across literally every industry. Yet when we look at the picture today, there's a very uneven distribution in terms of its full-scale adoption. On the one hand, we have the machine learning haves, companies like Google calling themselves AI first, Facebook investing millions into its platform called FB Learner Flow. They refer to it as their AI backbone. Having trained 1 million models on it, making 6 million plus predictions per second, and more interestingly, giving access to their developers, not just data scientists, to the system, 25% of them actually. And on the other hand, we have lots of companies still struggling with this. Why is that? Well, partially it's because having siloed data structures. We know this is a journey, it's not a two-day problem to solve. And as importantly, it's also due to a lack of analytical talent. There are only so many PhDs, and despite the bidding wars, hiring them, retaining them is still a problem. So you end up with small teams centrally located that don't necessarily know your business even though they know the algorithms, that are overwhelmed by the internal demand. So what if we turned this picture upside down and we had one machine learning literate knowledge worker, a developer, an analyst, even a subject matter expert in every work group? Then we could explore many more ideas, hundreds more. What would a platform like this look like? It would have the most versatile supervised and unsupervised learning algorithms packaged with engineering power behind it to perfection, with multiple visualizations that actually emphasize the intuition, not the complex math. It would come with a RESTful API to aid the developers who are looking to build smart applications on top of the models trained on the platform. It would come with structured training, starting with a 2-day crash course that covers every algorithm and every technique supported by the platform, and assuming zero machine learning background. And altogether, those layers combined with flexible deployment options, including hybrid, cloud, on-prem, it would basically enable a very powerful value proposition of a single platform, multiple predictive applications. So guess what? It exists. This platform is called Big ML. 70,000 plus people have signed up for it. Over 600 universities are using it to train tomorrow's knowledge workers about machine learning. And dozens of companies have already secured their private deployment versions. So if you're serious about machine learning adoption in your organization, please come and find me outside and let's talk. If you can't make the time today, please do tell your workforce to go to bigml.com and sign up for a free version. Thank you.
Thank you, Atakan. So we here at Plug and Play love our repeat companies and repeat entrepreneurs. So this next presenter actually has an interesting backstory. So so one of the companies he worked for previously was called Kinesta, and they did 3D modeling, and they eventually sold to Microsoft, and they were implemented in the Xbox Kinect. And now he's back with Aquify, both of which are portfolio companies. So we invested back then, successful exit, and then hopefully we're looking for the same here. So I'm pleased to introduce Tony from Aquify.
Thank you. We would not mind a successful exit. Hi, yes, Tony with Aquify. I'm going to race through 9 slides in about 3 minutes. What do? We automate highly repetitive, time-sensitive tasks typically found in manufacturing, supply chain, logistics processes, typically performed by a human line operator. We do this with AI software agents that are uniquely aided by 3D color information that we gather from our proprietary 3D color sensors. Now you see a little bit of connection with our past at Canesta. We focus our solutions in 3 task categories: identification, inspection, and dimensioning. These are 3 very common tasks that we as people might be asked to do in a distribution center, but we fatigue easily, we start to make errors, we slow down our throughput. How does it work? It starts with a real-time 3D scanning, either by a IoT form factor for fixed locations or this mobile sensor here for more mobile scenarios. That creates a rich 3D visual information data set. Set of 2D images plus a dimension 3D color point cloud. That goes into our AI backend. The AI backend uses not only the 2D images, which conventional neural networks use, but we also pull a lot of information from the dimension 3D color point cloud. In fact, we found that adding 3D data, dimension and shape to 2D images drastically increased the performance of the AI while simultaneously reducing drastically the amount of training needed. This is a big win-win for AI because you don't want to deploy an AI solution in which you might need 2 million examples to get a return or to get your AI to start working. A couple quick video examples. This is a demo we showed at Modex a couple weeks ago. Here, our 3D AI system was passively observing random items going down a conveyor belt. Using just one pass through our scanner network, the 3D AI system was able to uniquely identify every object just from seeing it once and discriminate from other very similar objects that it just learned. Let's say the Febreze from the Downy. These 2 Pampers packages, one's 4T, one's 5T. How about these 2 gas cans? They look very similar from a 2D perspective, but in fact, in 3D reality, one of them is twice the volume of the other. Or this 10 weight versus 10W30 versus 10W40 oil, very similar except for a 3 versus a 4 on different surfaces of the box. And finally, this 3D sensor here, which we're going to demonstrate outside, allows you to point and click at any object and in less than half a second generate length, width, and height of that object. It does not have to be a box. It could be box-like, it could be non-box-like, as small as, let's say, a box of business cards, all the way up to, as you see on the left, with a single click, we dimensioned a 8-foot-long pallet. So that's it. I am out of time, but I'd love to talk to you all about your automation use cases and demonstrate this guy to anyone who's interested. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. So just wanted to give a quick reminder for voting on these startups. So keep in the back of your mind, there will be a voting process using Lineupper. So can people raise, like, does everyone know what the Lineupper app is? Are we all good on the voting? Perfect. Okay, so our next startup is Edward from SkyMind. No fun fact.
So some background on the company. We're 4 years old. We raised $6 million in seed funding. We graduated from Y Combinator. Our lead investor is Tencent. We have about 20 customers right now, about 20 enterprises, 1 US government, and about 35 people on the team. And we're located in San Francisco and Tokyo. So at a high level, just think that SkyMind helps large organizations leverage machine learning, right? That's our mission. And we do this in 2 ways. One is professional services, POC support and training. And the second is licensing for our model deployment software called the SkyMind Intelligence Layer. So just think like the Red Hat model for open source if you're familiar. And this is our core technology. So we have it's 2 pieces. The first is our open source. It's called Eclipse DL4J. It's currently the 5th largest deep learning library in existence, but the largest one for Java specifically. And then we have a closed source layer called the SkyMind Intelligence Layer. That's built on top of DL4J, and it has about 800,000 Docker pulls to date. So for SkyMind Intelligence Layer, just think of it as a platform for data scientists and DevOps to collaborate. So if you look at the diagram, the bounded blue box is skill. And where it says model import, that's a data science ecosystem. So like TensorFlow, Keras, usually something Python based, that's their preferred tools. And where it says Hadoop and Spark, that's like the DevOps ecosystem. Skill basically allows these two different parties to collaborate and deploy models into production applications. So some key features, model import, we can be deployed on-prem, on cloud, we're agnostic, real-time or batch. And this is the ecosystem. So on the left is the data science ecosystem. Their goal is to help data scientists experiment faster. So typically in Python, and on the right is the DevOps ecosystem, the production deployment ecosystem. And those two are incompatible, and SkyMine is the bridge between the two. So at the simplest level, just think of SkyMine as the AI engine, right? So we provide the training, the expertise, the tools, and you provide everything else, integrations, data, and infrastructure. So this is just like an example use case, like an example application of our software. It's called robotic process automation. It's just a way to automate back-end tasks. So think like claims processing, sorting documents, validating forms, anything manual basically. So it's like the old way, 100% manual, done by humans. This is the current new way, using like an RPA vendor like UiPath, Blue Prism, or something like that. Pretty much automate like 90% of tasks, and the last 10% cannot be automated because computers just can't do that right now by itself. And this is like the new way. So it's basically AI plus RPA enabled with the SkyMine intelligence layer to enable your workflows to do more complicated tasks, such as like recognizing images and documents, to ultimately automate like 100% of your workflow. And that's it. So if you're interested, feel free to email me or stop by our booth in the game room. Thank you.
So for the fun fact of this next startup, their first working prototype was an AI-based fart detector, which begs the question, I don't know why they pivoted at all. I think there's a lot of use cases for that. But I'm pleased to present Nalin from Reality AI.
Morning, everyone. My name is Nalin. I run business development at Reality AI, where we provide AI-driven sensor and signal classification technology that can be deployed in commodity hardware at the edge. So sensors produce a lot of data. Sensor integration is underway across all verticals in the market today. But there's just one huge problem. Less than 1% of that collected sensor data is actually used meaningfully today in your products and services. A big reason for that is that a lot of this machine learning applications that are existing today, or solutions available today, are majorly cloud-based. So you typically need to send all your sensor data to the cloud for the analysis to happen, or have server-grade hardware. There's really a need for what we call machine intelligence at the edge, and this is where we come in. So we are an AI company that focuses on identifying signatures of events, conditions, and anomalies in complex sensor and signal information. So oftentimes we are looking at streaming signal information. Think of a real vibration or a sound coming off a vehicle, a machine, or a device, and being able to classify that in real time and make predictions on that in real time. And we can do all this while embedding the algorithm in a lightweight device at the edge. So we have 10 patents around very lightweight machine learning algorithms that can run on something like an extreme edge device, a sensor node with a microcontroller, your mobile phone device locally without the need for being connected to the cloud. We work with a variety of sensor and signals. We can do classifications on sound, vibration, accelerometry, radar, LiDAR. In fact, our technology is completely agnostic to the physics of the sensors and the relationships that you're trying to detect or classify. There's a very simple engagement model for our customers interested in embedding our technology into their products. We provide a software application which allows them to create a proprietary classifier. And this software application auto-generates software that can be deployed into the target device of interest. That target device could be a microcontroller edge node. It could be a mobile phone device, for example, running locally there. Or it could be a local gateway where all the sensors are coming into a specific gateway or a sensor hub. A snapshot of our customers. We are today working across a broad spectrum of customers. Fastest growing markets are in the automotive and in the industrial sector. We're also partnered with Bosch, Siemens, and Cisco in a variety of ways for sensor instrumentation and data acquisition for us to build these classifiers. An example of where we are being used in the context of a supply chain system is especially in the automotive fleet sector, where as you move towards autonomous or semi-autonomous fleets, for example, the cars will need to diagnose problems or predict problems on their own for fleet health monitoring. You'll also want to monitor driver conditions, comfort levels, and stress levels. All this happens in real time without connectivity to the cloud. Another application where we're being used widely is in asset condition monitoring and predictive maintenance. So if you want to look at equipment in your factories, robotic equipment, other types of equipment, and detect anomalies and predict remaining useful life on them based on, say, a vibration coming off the equipment. So some benefits, just to summarize, this stuff works in high variation, noisy environments, like in an operating condition of a vehicle, for example, where you have dynamic targets and a lot of noise, essentially. Detect anomalies of interest works with any sensor, and we can be embedded right on a microcontroller device. So none of this data is being sent to the cloud. The algorithms are running locally in a lightweight footprint device. A little bit about the company. We're headquartered in New York with an R&D team in Maryland and the business development office here in Silicon Valley. We're 3 years old, seed funded, over a dozen customers, and we have 10 patents awarded on the technology, 6 patents pending. This technology was actually developed for a variety of specialized signal recognition and sensing applications in the US intelligence community before we brought it to the commercial market.
Thank you, Nalan. So this next startup is in the shadows of Salesforce, both literally and figuratively. Literally because their office in SF is under the shadows of the gigantic Salesforce building, as well as Salesforce led their seed round of funding. So please help me welcome Troy from Lunetics.
All right, it's actually John. Troy's in the back row, but I don't think he minds. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I know I'm standing between you and lunch, so I'll keep this focused, although it sounds like we're running a little bit behind schedule. When Chris spoke today, we talked a little bit about consumers wanting exactly the type of product they want and the time in which they expect it through the channel in which they need it. Our question at Lunetics is, why, as business users, aren't you expecting the same thing? And specifically around the people. So the Lunetics technology doesn't drive robots, it doesn't automate sensors, it helps the people in logistics companies do their jobs more effectively. And we call that customer lifecycle management. So our company was founded about 4 years ago. We were backed, as we mentioned, by Salesforce.com. Our focus is entirely around providing the best CRM to transportation and logistics companies. I started my career back in CRM in the 90s when Bill Clinton was in office, and CRM was formerly known as a customer information systems. And what's happened since then is we've moved to the cloud, and now we're seeing very specific industry solutions like pharmaceuticals, for example, CRM of life sciences. We are CRM exclusively for transportation and logistics companies because of the unique needs of those businesses. As we mentioned, we're headquartered up in San Francisco. Our products focus on the entire customer life cycle. So we look at every stage of how your people inside 3PLs, inside freight brokerage firms, inside railroads, for example, work to get customers through the RFP and tender process, sell to them to build really unique, differentiated solutions, and more importantly, maintain, grow, and upsell those customers. So a customer you get once really turns into a customer for life. Our focus has been entirely around delivering a real unique user experience, right? We provide that functionality for bid desks, for example, tender teams. Because let's face it, if you buy any standard CRM from an Oracle or an SAP, they're going to sell you an email spam engine. Those don't work in logistics. You need tools to help manage and monitor the way in which your tenders come in, so you focus on selling the right services to the right trade lanes in the international markets, or the right OD pairs if you're focused on domestic freight. We also then help commercial leaders sell those services specifically through their sales organizations. And so in the past, I'm sure as many of you know, your alternative, if you are, again, a major transportation company, was to take a product like an Oracle or an SAP and bring in an Accenture and customize everything to exactly your requirements. What we do is help companies, again, in that 3PL space, have that functionality out of the gate from day one. Our company is global. We've been fortunate to work with companies like DHL, for example, Kuehne Nagel across Europe, UASC in the Middle East, Toll Group in Australia, Li & Feng's logistic division in Hong Kong. We've got some great case studies we'd invite you to take a look at. We're working closely with the team at DHL on their bid test. It's been a partnership really from close to day one as we've built and grown the company. We also work very closely with, as I mentioned, helping drive more innovation through some of the 3PLs as they're looking at applying a lot of these new technologies that you've seen here too. So again, we'll be right over there. Troy, our head of engineering, who came out of the CRM space with years of experience, together with Mike Hipp, who runs our own commercial operations. I would be happy to spend a few minutes with you if you could head out into the game room or in the far left corner. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Troy. So our next startup presenter plays in a band that raises money for charities and nonprofits. I'm pleased to introduce Harsha from Grabit.
Thank you. My name is Harsha. I'm from a Silicon Valley startup about 10 minutes from here called Grabit. We make robotic material handling equipment in two spaces. One is in manufacturing and the other is in warehouse logistics. So Grabit is commercializing a technology developed out of my lab in a place called SRI, International Stanford Research Institute. They've spun out other companies like Siri, Intuitive Surgical, Nuance Communications, with many billions of dollars in value. So the technology that we're commercializing allows you to simply stick to anything when small amounts of electricity is applied. So what you're seeing in that video is an application in the warehouse logistics called EachPick that some of you may be familiar with, where we're grasping a variety of shapes and sizes without needing to know a lot a priori about what those objects are. So the products that we have out in the market, this is in the top left video is in the manufacturing space. I won't go through this, but the idea is that we are selling machines that use machine learning and vision and robotics along with our proprietary technology to produce shoes for the likes of Nike in an automated, semi-automated fashion. The product that you see on the lower video is a product that's deployed in several warehouses at our lead customer, FedEx. And what that product is doing is applying basically flow control to make what are called gravity lanes. These are lanes feeding down into trucks to make them smart. So the idea is that it would look at what's going on in the truck with sensors. It monitors the lane, and it releases product in a smart way so as to optimize the overall truck loading process. Upcoming products, we have figured out how to embed the technology in a conveyor belt, and that allows shrinking of warehouse space by going up and down steep inclines or declines. So as an example, if you were to go up 10 feet at a conventional 10-degree incline, you would need 60 feet of horizontal space. If you do it at 30 degrees, you would only need 15 feet of horizontal space. So the space savings and associated real estate savings are enormous with this technology. We're also applying that in a new type of sorter that eliminates all mechanical moving parts and thereby has a 4 to 5x improvement in cost to throughput ratio for these sorters. So these are products in the pipeline. Our website is grabitinc.com. We don't have a booth here, so if anybody wants to get in touch with us, feel free to either send me a LinkedIn message or contact us through our website, www.grabitinc.com. One word, GRABITINC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harsha. So they do have a booth. All of our startups have a booth in the game room. Just look for their sign, and you can find it there. So our next startup was actually a previous InsurTech badge company. DataRobot, they've raised over $100 million in funding. They're doing pretty well. And we have JC here to present on DataRobot. And please give him a warm intro.
Thank you. So after the always on time German, you have the never on strike French. So I'm with DataRobot. We are in the automated machine learning space, and we enable the AI-driven enterprise. So we've been talking a lot today about the AI needs for companies. This is just a simple quote from Forrester about how AI drives a lot of competitive advantage. But there is a big problem, right? And the problem is, as the demand for AI increases, so is the demand for models. The thing is, the exponential demand for models is not met by the number of data scientists that are out there to manually develop those models. So how do we deal with that? We can enable the data scientists to be more productive. So that's one way of enabling them to develop more models in the same amount of time. And the second thing is turning the data analysts and the engineers into data scientists by upgrading their skills. So this is DataRobot. This is the automated machine learning. We accelerate the time to value by enabling people to build and deploy custom, I insist on custom, machine learning models 10 times faster. Our platform is built for accuracy. We get to compete the models with each other and try literally millions of combinations in order to get the most accurate model for the specific problem you have. And we use pervasive ML in the sense that we build a very easy-to-use UI and UX for everyone to be able to start doing machine learning, even though you're not a data scientist. How do we do that? We just hire the best data scientists in the world, including our two founders on the right-hand side of this slide. It's a sample of the Kaggle masters that we hired at DataRobot. We have over 150 of those data scientists in the company. We use the best of-breed models, open source models out there. And we basically ask those data scientists to build in their know-how and best practices into the tool so we can automate what they would normally do manually. Again, we are DataRobot. We have over 400 million models built by our customers so far on our platform. We have real customers that are deployed in enterprise context. And we're here to help you do AI. Visit us at datarobot.com. Thank you.
Awesome. So we are now at our last startup of the day. So please keep in mind the voting, because the voting will be after this startup presents to give everyone an equal shot, of course. So the next startup is Brian from LoadDocs, and he will actually be going to the Warriors game tonight, which is pretty cool. So please give the last startup of the day a very, very warm introduction. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Hoping for some recency bias with the voting here being the last one. So LoadDocs, we, as the name would suggest, focused on documents, specifically for over-the-road trucking. And what you're seeing on the right there, that photo, it's a fax machine. And that's at every truck stop throughout the States. When a driver completes a delivery, still today, the #1 method for getting documents back to the office for people to be aware of that delivery is they're deadheading to a truck stop to fax. So for us, we see that as, quite frankly, as engineers, is quite ridiculous still that today that this is the #1 method. With where mobile technologies have advanced, we are leveraging that to put an application in the driver's hands that allow them to do that much quickly. It couldn't be more critical today with a lot of the regulation coming out from the US DOT right now. They're mandating trucks to have electronic logging devices that are restricting the number of hours that the truck can drive, or monitoring even stricter. Deadheading is very critical to the operations, and that's why we're seeing a huge rise in freight costs right now. So it comes down to improving the way that documents are brought back into the office, allowing them to do that immediately upon delivery. Our mission really, over time, is to eliminate paperwork entirely. On our way there are many strategies and products that we're developing that allow them to get there in different ways. I'll show you just a quick introduction for how this is being used by some of the trucking companies, shipping operations with over-the-road fleets. So what you're seeing here, primarily, it's scanning. So our algorithm is detecting the document and allowing for a really strongly enhanced version that we're capturing right from the camera on the device. Over time, we're allowing fleets to start to digitize their documents more and more, where they legally and physically can be, through electronic signatures, barcode scanning, and various forms where they can be moved electronic. More exciting is where we start to apply AI. So with some of our shippers that we work with, where you have standardized templates, we can start to get much smarter and really teach the system about what we should be looking for. So as you're seeing here, we take templates initially with our deployments, and we teach the system, work with our customers to identify what are the fields from these documents that you want to capture. Both the statuses of these documents, so was it received? Are there exceptions on it? Did it receive a signature? And then ultimately to take the full text, extract structure for integrations into the ERP or the TMS system. Some of the customers we're working with today, probably the most exciting use case that is right in our backyard here, PG&E. They're using it for all of their deliveries of utility poles. Previous to load docs, it would take them on average of 2 weeks to know that a utility pole was delivered to a job site. It would sit on the side of the road, grass would grow over it. Now, the same day, the foreman or the lineman knows that the pole is dropped, they know where it is, and they have the documentation in their hand to head out and start their installation at the job site. That's our team. We're based out of San Francisco, and I'll be based in the game room, at least for another couple hours before I head to the Warriors game here. Go Dubs. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So we have reached the conclusion of all the startup pitches as well as the keynote speech we had earlier. So please give another big round of applause to all the startups that just presented. So just the final touches before everyone is leaving. We have a couple of awards to give out. One is for the most most innovative corporate that's a partner of the Plug and Play supply chain team, as well as the best startup from presenting today. So right now, I would like to ask everyone in the audience to look at the back of their name tag, go on Lineupper, and please vote for the startup that you think had the best presentation. I'm now going to introduce the Vice President of Plug and Play and the Managing Partner of the Supply Chain Vertical, Farzin, to give the Best Corporate Award. And then after we give that award, we will announce which startup had the best presentation. So I'll invite Farzin to the stage right now.
Thank you, Kayvon. It's not because of lack of talent that we keep asking him. It's because he's good. Don't you agree? So for Kayvon, yes. Thank you, Kayvon. Very good. How are the startups? We are exactly, to my watch, 1 year old. 1 year ago in May, during the Expo for all the other verticals, we did our first selection in that room. And now we have caught up with everybody. We do our Expo with everybody, and looks like we're doing well. So thank you for everybody who joined us, who trusted us, and who gave us this opportunity to build this ecosystem. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to pull it off. So with that, I have a couple of corporate innovation awards. We come up with a new criteria every time, and we choose a winner among our corporate partners. The first one we decided to give to the one that spends the most amount of time with the startups, and the one who has spent the most amount of time during this batch with the startups is BASF. Mark? Yes. Mark is here pretty much every day. He's available to meet with the startups anytime, day and night. And he gives them advice. He hooks them up with different people at BASF. He's also very good at bringing very different organizations across the enterprise, across BASF here. We have done deal flows for health-related products. We have done food. We have done mobility. What else have we done? We have HR, yeah. So Mark has made the best of all the ecosystems that we have. So for that, here you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we get a photo? We get a photo. Ask the photographer, whatever you want. Okay, very good. Thank you. Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. The second one we thought that we would give to the corporation that has done the most number of POCs this year or during this patch. And that one is DHL. So Stefan and Stefan, if you can come up. Yes, you. You see, it's a good deal. You should visit us more often. It's your first time coming to Silicon Valley. Stefan usually works with our Stuttgart team, but you show up once and you get an award.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
With pleasure. It has been a pleasure working with them, especially the past few months. The highlight has been for me to host your top 70 leadership team here. It was a treat. It was a bit challenging. We did 7 deal flows for them simultaneously, but we pulled it off.
Okay.
Yes. So yes. So I'm glad that we did well and didn't disappoint. Yes. Who should we look at? Okay. All right. Okay. Very good. Excellent. Thank you very much. With that, again, thank you for coming, and I'll pass this to the Best Startup Award. Yes? Okay.
Thank you, Farzin, and congratulations to BASF and DHL. So we're going to do it kind of Oscar style, except we won't mess up the winner. So we'll have the final startups. We're finalizing the votes right now, and so I'll get a piece of paper soon, and we'll announce the winner. So dramatic. So the very prestigious award of Best Startup of the Day and presentation is Aquify. So is Aquify here? Perfect. So here you go. Victory speech, maybe?
Yeah, sorry, we didn't expect to win. It's a great set of startups that presented out throughout the day. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for voting supports. And just as importantly, if you want to talk about our automation use cases, we'll be right outside. Thank you. Thank you again.
So that concludes the second Supply Chain Expo. Thank you all for coming. There will be lunch outside, as well as the game room is still available to meet the startups. And have a great rest of the day, and come back for new materials and packaging later this afternoon.